Hello friends, have a good time. We are at your service with Shabnameh. There is a report by the Washington Post about the events in our region, the talks that Saudi Arabia has had with Iran, the UAE has had with Iran, and other countries, which has certain points. I would like to review it together. Let's go ahead with the report, then I have special points, I will present them to you. There is a very interesting point in the report, and that is, he pointed to this, and said that, apparently, we have to accept that the era of peace has begun in this region, except for Israel. That is, they are sure that there is a place where the story will never end. It never ends. Each of these problems will be solved, people will discuss each other. Maybe the enmity will never end. But they try to go away from the tension. Only occupied Palestine will not be solved, its story. It is interesting that he mentioned it in this report. Let's read a part of his passage together, and then I have some tips to share with you. He says, here is a brief list of the wars that have occurred in this region, and shows why American diplomacy is still necessary in this troubled part of the world. We will address it. It seems that Yemen's civil war, one of the most brutal wars of this century, is moving towards a stable solution. Thanks to the tireless mediation and concessions of Saudi Arabia, a country that Americans still love, often with good reason, to hate. Yemen could still face war again. But, after a year of ceasefire, the Saudis finally deserve some credit. We want to go and check together, see what points he raises about Yemen. He says a number, this number is strange. He says, the United Nations has estimated that 377,000 people have been killed or starved in the war in Yemen. Then he says, this is a war started by Saudi Arabia with the support of America. Sir, somewhere in the world, a war has started and 377,000 people have been killed. Or are they hungry? Then your official statistics, your unofficial statistics, say something else. So why is no one in the world talking about it? Because they hoped that with the American weapons and the efforts of the Saudis, they could prevent a friend that Iran has in the region from its revival. They did not imagine that the page would turn differently. Let's go to check its continuation. He says, there is another war in this region, the Syrian war. According to Human Rights Watch, this country has been involved since 2011. He has been involved in this war for 13 years. He says, 500,000 people were killed in this war, and it has caused 6 million people to emigrate from this country. But this wretched conflict lacks a U.S. mediator or roadmap for resolution. Therefore, the Arab countries alone are making separate agreements. Saudi foreign minister visited Damascus for the first time after 2011. In the case of Syria, American politicians are tired. We have imposed sanctions against President Bashar al-Assad. We have refused any normalization with him. Sanctions may feel better to members of Congress. And they give us a little leverage pressure, but it does nothing to ease the suffering of Syria. This approach reminds me of the lack of a clear policy in America towards Iraq during the time of Saddam Hussein. Do you know why this is a nightmare for him when he talks about it? He says, when you have an uncertain policy, you will side with Iran. Like a fool, you eliminate Iran's first-class enemy who had a bloody war with Iran. You spend money there, you spend time there, you put energy there. You are doing things there that later analysts will come and say that they killed more people from Iraq than Saddam himself. Then you hand over all these things that you did to Iraq to the resistance. In Saddam's palace, an atmosphere has been created, that years later, Qasem Soleimani's banner will be raised and 22 Bombing will be celebrated. Well, it's a madhouse. The area is not. You spent so much, something else happened. Yes. You spent money, something else happened. Because you did not consider God in your calculations. He points to this here, he says, we had an unclear approach towards Iraq. The same is true for Syria. He says, let's not go and do something at once and see, Iran is gaining strength here. In the following, he points out one point. He says, we had a group in Syria, which helped us a lot. In the following, she points out one point. She says, we had a group in Syria, which helped us a lot. In the following, she points out one point. She says, we had a group in Syria, which helped us a lot. We had a moral obligation to them, and that is the Syrian Kurds, who nobly fought and died to destroy ISIS. To find a place in a future federal Syria. This is very important. Sir, did you pay attention to what he said? He says, they did this to find a place in the future federal Syria. They made a deal with the Americans, which from the federal. I mean, how did it happen? That is, the way he says it, and the way the evidence is, they went and talked to the Americans. They said, let us fight, what will happen? The Americans said, well, first of all, you have to fight ISIS so that it does not come to take over your country. So that it does not occupy your area. Go somewhere else. Then, it's okay now, I'll give you the weapons to do it. But well, in the next government of Syria, I will try to support you, so that you go in the direction of being independent. We call it federalism. The name of the password is decomposition. These days in Iran, we see that some people who should have their mouths covered with mud repeat this. Now, our traitorous traitors also went and sat next to the separatists, we have nothing to do with them. He is talking about this in Syria. He says, we promised them that, in the federal government of the future Syria, they can have a place. These are the area code names. They attacked Iraq and destroyed Iraq. Then they said, there should be 3 countries. Shia country, Sunni country, Kurdish country. Now you look at the structure of each of them separately, they should try to make it for themselves, have cooperation, let's fight, nothing will come out of this system. The country is constantly involved in crises and challenges. Everyone is making a move in their own home. They considered the same for Syria. America considered the same for other parts of the region. He is saying it clearly here. Friends, America deserves that. We are enemies with it. America deserves to be killed. America deserves that we ask God to break his country into 1,000 pieces. Because these are the enemies of our region. Because they want the division of our region. Because they want the destruction of Iran. He wants the destruction of Iraq. They want the destruction of Syria. Why? Because, he believes that when oil, energy, capital, assets are under your feet, the best thing is not to relax. Don't have unity, don't have empathy, that I can get them. Imagine there is a war in the region today, one side, for example, the Americans, is behind Saudi Arabia, and the other side is Yemen. Well, Saudi Arabia, you want to buy weapons, what can you give me? Bring your own oil here, I'll give you a weapon. Iran has never seen it before in its lifetime. You are fighting with Iran, where is the story of Yemen? Give me your oil. He is taking his oil, he is taking his energy. In the Kurdistan region, it is happening in a different way. It is the same story in other places. They seek to divide our region, in the name of federalism. Let's go and read the rest of its report together. He says that, we want to protect our Kurdish allies in Syria in the future. We must cooperate with our regional partners in the United Arab Emirates, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Look, the story will not end, they are watching. Conversations are taking place. Ignore a region, it is not a region. Every day, if they can, they want to put the Arab countries in front of their money. One side is involved with each other, that one is with him. Whatever happens, don't worry about this story, I would let you read it. Apart from the Kurds, we have other issues, the neighboring Arab countries. The Zionist regime needs help to reduce Iran's military power there. The surrounding Arab countries need help to reduce Iran's power. Syria's neighbor is Iraq, or 9. If Iran is weak, it can help us with ISIS, then Iraq will include what you said in Iraq. Now let's look at Lebanon. If it wasn't for Iran and Lebanon's resistance, Iran wouldn't have the strength to help. Lebanon's resistance could be formed there, in front of the Zionists, and then Lebanon can't say that I don't have a fight with Jordan, who is in charge. We don't have it. His decision does not mean the Zionist regime. He says that we should help the Zionist regime that can weaken Iran, that can witness a weakened Iran in this region. Then he says that in the situation we are talking about, Bashar al-Assad is victorious in the field, but he deserves help for reconstruction. He says that he does not deserve help for reconstruction, but Syria deserves help. So what happened to the 12 semi-constructed country? Bashar Assad destroyed it. They could not do anything with Iran. They are standing next to Iran. They are going towards them. Now the country, let me tell you what he was doing in these years. He was only looking for the fact that he didn't want to reach a place where Iran could see. Sir, pay attention. Let's see what happened in Iran in the general atmosphere. Put half a map on the table and tell me that I built an axis of resistance. It doesn't matter if it is true or not. In this country that you are referring to, there are people who agree with you. Syria is the backbone of the axis of the resistance. Yemen had everything in these 10 years of engaging in the crisis of Syria and Iraq with ISIS in Yemen. It was understood that Saudi Arabia has been involved in the crisis for the past 10 years. Why should it kneel for Iran? Saudi Arabia sent their property. The UAE sent their facilities. All look. The story will not end. They are looking at the conversations that are taking place in the region. They are not the ones who are leaving the region. Every day if they can. They want to put the Arab countries in front, so that their money is sent one way. One is involved with the other, and it is chaos. They will not be indifferent to this story. Let's read the rest of the report together. He mentions this in the report and says, in Syria, of course, we have other issues besides the Kurds. Neighboring Arab countries, and the Zionist regime, need help to reduce Iran's military power there. The surrounding Arab countries need help to reduce Iran's power. Is Iraq a neighbor of Syria or not? If Iran was weakened, if Iran was weak, could it help Iraq on the issue of ISIS? Therefore, the word Iraq does not include Iraq for you. Now, let's go check Lebanon. The Zionists were conquering Lebanon. If it wasn't for Iran and the Lebanese resistance, Iran wouldn't have the strength to help, for the Lebanese resistance to form there. Could they stand in front of the Zionists? So you can't say about Lebanon either. I have no quarrel with Jordan at all. I have no problem with Jordan at all. He has thrown a kick towards us somewhere, he has gone and stood next to the Arab country. We don't fight like that. So it stays in one place. You mean the Zionist regime. He says, we must help the Zionist regime to weaken Iran. That can witness a weakened Iran in this region. Then he says, in the situation we are talking about, Bashar Assad is the winner of the field, but it does not deserve to be helped to rebuild. Sir, the reconstruction that he should do for his country, for his own father who does not do that. He says, it does not deserve help for reconstruction, but Syria deserves help. What happened? They destroyed the country for 12 years, they could not do anything with Bashar Assad. Iran stood by it, one by one they are going towards them. Now it has to settle its country. So what have you been doing all these years? It was just looking for an attempt, no. He wanted to reach a place where Iran. Look, sir, be careful. Once in the general space, let's see what happened in Iran. You put a map on the table to say that I built an axis of resistance. It's true. Regardless of whether you are telling the truth or not. In these countries that you are referring to, there are people who are of the same mind as you. That is true. That's right, I'm not saying wrong. Now, there is one point. I will mention names. Pay attention to these countries that I am talking about. Syria is the backbone of the resistance. Iraq and Yemen have all been involved in crisis in these 10 years. Syria and Iraq with ISIS. Yemen with the father of ISIS, that is, Saudi Arabia. Do you understand what happened? In these 10 years, all of them have been involved in crisis. For what? Because Iran must kneel. Saudi Arabia sent its assets, sent its facilities. The Emirates sent all their power. They sent whatever takfiri they had to Iraq and Syria. Mercenaries from Sudan and other places, they brought it to Yemen. He won't be able to do it after 10 years, so that he can throw another dirt on himself later. The story of our region is like this, everyone has joined this game you say. And it was continuous, we never had a chance to think about it that it hit Iraq at the same time as Syria. It hit Yemen at the same time as Iraq. Wherever he had a friend, he involved them. Together for 10 years. That what for Iran to kneel down. If these break apart, Iran will lose its credibility and reputation. Iran should be limited and confined inside its own country. But they have not reached anywhere. Finally, they came with crooked necks to talk with the axis of resistance. One point says that it is very interesting. Put all this aside, these are the countries that are involved in the crisis, and it has been mentioned, above all, it is Lebanon. We must help in Lebanon. He is an official, he is the head of the Lebanese armed forces. Joseph Onn that said, We should help him become the president in Lebanon. The Lebanese probably like it, they associate with it. The Lebanese resistance does not go along with it. We must help this to come to an end, so that we can reset Lebanon, finally. Look, you have been doing resets for 10 years. Then you write a report and say that Saudi Arabia came to Iran, the UAE came to Iran, then went to Syria. What reset is this? Maybe you are resetting for our benefit. Then, in these 10 years, you gave all your strength and could not do anything wrong. Now you went and stood outside the pit. Do you think that you can do something? They brought their own imaginations to paper. They fought with us for 10 years. 20 years of fighting with our enemy Saddam. They went and took his country, handing it over to the resistance fighters. Now he says to think for this country. Well done. But from what you have done in these 10 years, see if you will provide more keys from more countries to the axis of resistance or not. Let's read the rest together. In the continuation of the report, he mentioned that, based on what we are seeing, we can guess that the era of detention is dawning. With the tragic exception of the never-ending Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Della Basso for the Zionist regime. He says, everyone is going to reconcile with each other, the Zionist regime has no place. Yesterday I read a report to you, if you remember, it was written by the intelligence centers of the regime. In a part of the report, he said that, you have a series of options against Iran. One of your options is, go talk to it, befriend it. This option is locked for you. This option cannot help you. They have reached a complete dead end. They have no way, but he says one thing in a part of his report about conversations with Bashar Assad. He says, Arab countries, he means UAE and especially Saudi Arabia. He says, they're eating their own grudges, they're talking to Assad. I told you that the pictures of Ben Zayed that you are looking at do not want to smile at all. I told you, the photos of Ben Zayed that you are looking at do not want to smile at Bashar Assad at all. If you don't want to smile, why did you invite him to your country? No. I invited him, I say, I laugh, but sir, delete the photo of me laughing in the camera. Don't let these photos be. You look at the photos, as if for example, Bashar Assad first cursed at the airport and then said where is your palace? Let's sit down and talk. This too, his frowns are mixed. He is really telling the truth. The report is very accurate. The Washington Post says, they swallowed their anger and are talking to him. Why? Because they were a wealthy claimant in this area. They had bought the law. They had also bought the media, red light, green light. Everything was okay for them, in this region. They went to destroy Syria and failed. They went to destroy Yemen, it was poor, but they failed. They went to destroy Iran, it was a joke, they failed. And in the end, they suffered a heavy defeat. The interesting part of the report is here. Who points to this, says that we have to do business with the nations of the region. We have to go talk to them. Some of these partners may be unpleasant for us. But this is part of diplomacy. We have had hateful wars for decades. It is time to have peace and hateful peace. He is really saying these things from the bottom of his heart. Sir, it was not supposed to be in the west of Asia region. You with 5,000 with some 1,000 nuclear warheads, and some 100,000 troops, who came from all over the world to help you. You're the loser of the story. I may get dizzy in Qajar and Pahlavi. I will eat from behind and in front. I will look at the point of my country. The country is getting smaller. Nothing left of this country. They gave us whales, and we got cats. I may see these, but I will collect them. I am Iranian, I collect the game. And the crises that I have inside, and the challenges that I have, I also solve them. Be a little patient. The game will become much more amazing, and people will come to Iran that many people do not even dream about. Ashi is